All right, guys, welcome to a long overdue AMA, the first one of 2023. This one we didn't do live, but we did gather questions from the community and kind of other questions from the team that they thought would be nice to explain to you guys as well. So I'm going to do the best that I can to tell you as much as I can based on your questions on what I can tell you. So if you've seen my last AMA, you will know that we are working on a lot of things that are incredibly innovative. I think that will give us a very unique edge when it comes down to everything else. And what I don't want to do is talk about those specific things and let the cat out of the bag, if you will, because the things that we're doing take a while to implement. And I do think that when we announce them and other people hear about it, they will also copy. So I want to keep that kind of tight-lipped. I think that you guys will really enjoy this. I think that we're going to answer some good questions, and I think that it'll give you enough, and hopefully some of the logic and the way that I explain things will give you some good insight into what we're doing, maybe a rough timeline for those things, and just all the kind of exciting things that are new happening at Paid as well. So enjoy this, guys. Let me know in the comments, like anything that you thought I could have answered better or differently, or other questions that you might have. We will probably be doing these once a month until markets get more interesting. And then when we start announcing things that we're working on, they'll pick up in frequency quite a lot. So it's not that I don't want to be talking to you guys. I love you. I really appreciate you. It's just that I'm literally working my butt off right now to make sure that we can bring you the best products possible, the most innovative, just like the best thing that we possibly can.
Okay, let's get started. First, we have about 12 questions from the Paid team, and then we'll go on to Paid community questions after that. So the first question is, are there any new exciting projects in the pipeline?
Yeah, so we're constantly trying to add different use cases for Paid and its community and the governance and token. As I told you guys before, like we wouldn't really be able to tell too much about what we're doing right now. Bear markets are all meant for building, and that's what we're doing right now. So like I said in last AMA, and I know it was a while ago, but it's because I can't disclose too much, but this is what we're doing. Bear markets have always been for building. And you learn a lot every day, every cycle. And usually in bull markets, it's really hard to focus on building. And it's just about like maintaining and using what you built already, making sure you can service your customers and try to get that adoption for what you built, when the attention is there. And now, the retail attention is very sparse. And, for products like Ignition, the crowdfunding platform, it just doesn't make sense for us to continue to use it right now so much, as there's just very little interest in people investing into projects right now from the retail side. So what we did instead was taking everything that we've learned from a lot of different things, just studying things like token economic designs, utility, and instead of trying to really improve the launchpad that we had built already, it felt like it made more sense to redo everything, because the goal essentially is, for everything that Paid does to be operate in a completely decentralized and trustless fashion that the DAO will control. And so, without giving away too many details, I will say that, for example, everything will be permissionless, meaning that anyone can come and will be able to come and create their own crowdfunding pool. And so there'll be a section on the Ignition website where, people can just go launch their own projects without our permission. Now, of course, that's just because I think everything should be open and permissionless, and people should have tools to use them, and it shouldn't be reserved only for select projects, and so I think that's nice. And but we will have the main kind of highlight of the Ignition app set to the projects that are essentially endorsed by or working with Paid, to make sure that and this would be the same as before. So think about how due diligence was done, and projects were selected on which ones would launch on Ignition and which ones wouldn't. that process will still exist. In fact, there will be a higher degree of due diligence, and probably, we thought of a bunch of different ways to improve the customer experience, both for the projects as well as the paid community that are using these products as well. How to make everything better, easier, but also from the ones that do get kind of, I don't even want to say stamp of approval, but like the ones that are working hand in hand with some of the paid team to maybe improve their exposure and visibility, to maybe make sure that things like the decks, liquidity is added in a more secure way, maybe suggesting things to them that will bring more confidence to the users. All these things we will have, so that will be still exist in paid and Ignition. And so you could think of that as kind of like the ones that we're working with hand in hand to bring to you. So that's from the Ignition side. Now, also there's a lot more going on there in Ignition. And for anyone watching this who doesn't know what Ignition is, that's the crowdfunding platform. Before it has a name IDO. And when I really thought about it, the way that these models were designed, including ours, they seem flawed in the way that people would need to hold a bunch of the tokens to do this, to be able to participate, and at some point people just get priced out. Like it becomes too expensive to own enough tokens to even have a chance to win a ticket in a lottery. And the whales got the most, and a lot of different like IDO platforms have tried to think of different models to be more distributed. I think that the model that we've created will blow everyone away. I can't say more than that, but I can say that it's very smart. It opens up things to a lot of people that maybe were excluded before, like annihilates that barrier of entry, and I think it will just allow us to reach a much broader and wider audience. And of course, and it'll add what we're doing is going to add tremendous value to the token economy, which is something I'm very passionate about. Yeah.
Amazing. Looking forward to it.
And then sorry, back to the question was like new. So that's kind of like the improvement for Ignition. And I probably shouldn't even ask you because the question was about new products. And so maybe you can ask me another question or something, but anyway, we can throw that in there. Like that is the update on Ignition, because I'm sure everyone's wondering. We do have a new product in the paid umbrella, and this is in an attempt for self-regulation. So I think that right now, especially with the FTX and Celsius, and everyone's looking for ways that we can mature the space and have less bad actors, and really give our space a better reputation, because we want massive adoption, and people who haven't jumped into crypto yet are looking at the industry right now and being like, there's no effing way I'm getting involved in there. It's a bunch of, it's nothing but, people who are exploiting people to get rich quick, and then a bunch of con artists and fraudsters, and like the whole thing is a scam. That's what everyone thinks right now. And people are looking to regulators. Like there's never been in crypto's history, there's never been a time where people were pushing for regulation more. But what people fail to realize is that regulation, like a lot of other things, systems that have been put in place historically, it's worked before. Because like, let's say that you're a normal centralized business, and you file for a business license. You're normally in a jurisdiction, in a state or a city, or certainly within a country, and your office is there and your customer base is there. And even things like Amazon or online businesses typically start, in a jurisdiction or to a certain market, Now what we have is we've got a financial product, or financial asset class that that one platform can service customers from all over the world. And they do service customers from all over the world, and they're born from countries all over the world. And sometimes they're pseudo-anonymous, and doesn't mean that, or anonymous founders, doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that usually they're building something disruptive enough to where they feel like, anyway, the ones that I like to support are the ones that are disruptive enough to where they feel like maybe what they're doing might threaten a legacy company or system to where they're in danger, they may be in danger because of it. And so just like Satoshi from Bitcoin, choose to stay anonymous. So when you think about the way that regulation works, sure, everyone looks to America to see what kind of regulation are they going to create, and then usually follow suit. However, bravo to the countries who have created regulation way ahead of the curve. But one, it's going to be really difficult for regulators to fully understand what's going on, right? Like, how are you supposed to create rules and regulations for sure, even if you understand generally what blockchain is? Will a majority of these regulators who are creating legislation for altcoins, will they understand token economics and how that's different from a for-profit company? Probably not. And so the laws, for example, and another really important thing too is like, yes, a utility token is like Gary Gensler said, like they're all basically securities, and big deal. Like, but that's the design of them. Like the reason a token exists is for economic incentive to do work or to take part in something. And yes, oftentimes projects need to raise money, before they build or as they're building or whatever. And so they sell tokens at a discount to investors who, and of course they're going to give them a discount because there's risk involved. And of course those investors expect, that token to increase in value over time, right? Why? Because, well, they're investors and they want to make money, but that's the same way. So, but it's designed like that. Also, people who participate in the system, like for example, in Bitcoin, if you bought a bunch of Bitcoin or you mined Bitcoin in the early days, it was worth nothing. I mean, in 2010, you couldn't give 10,000 Bitcoin away. But I think those few people who were mining Bitcoin in the early days, who probably still haven't sold today, they just knew that if by participating in this network, by securing it, by doing work, if this thing has adoption, these assets will probably be valuable in the future. And again, that same mentality by SEC standards would be considered securities. So to answer the question, I've proposed several different times to create global standards of best practices that become standards in the industry. And what I mean by that is that products exist that people can use that help provide some degree of more trust or confidence to the public that this thing that they're doing is trustworthy. And if someone's using this thing, it will be much more difficult for them to be a bad actor. And so, that could be a bunch of different things. For centralized exchanges, for example, you could have, a bunch of exchange operators, with good intentions, good actors come together and say, okay, centralized exchanges, at the very least, should follow all these kind of best practices and procedures, how they custody funds, how they do accounting, how they do whatever, how they show order books, blah, 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 blah. So that would be eventually kind of a council that comes together in that niche specific vertical of crypto and say, these are the best practices and standards everyone should use. And then there would be some type of association or whatever that would audit these guys, and make sure that they're following these best practices. And then if they are, that's a good marketing tool for them. They get to, and all the influencers and everyone's going to say, hey, make sure that you're only using exchanges that are following this crypto best standards association, whatever. But there's a lot of different verticals that need to be self-regulated in this fashion. I think we need to all create. And so Paid is working on one specific vertical that is very personal to us, has affected us a lot. And when we come out with the data and research that we show you guys, you realize that anyone watching this has also been affected by what I'm talking about. It's going to be something that we are hoping to be able to get out to be able to be used before a bull run really kicks in, because right now is a time that people will listen, and now is a time when people are looking back, at what they could have done better, from the last cycle, and they're going to look at, and because their portfolio is probably down, 70, 80, 90%, they're also going to look at, and if you're making amazing money, and maybe you're an investor in a project and you've invested in 50 projects and some of them aren't sending you tokens every month or whatever, when they should be, maybe you're too busy and making too much money to even realize that. But today, I guarantee you people are going back and making sure they got all their tokens, and it shouldn't have to be like that, and I've heard stories about, not stories, but like, for us, for example, as advisors, like we've not been paid tokens that we've been owed, all the time. It was super common toward at the very beginning of this bear market, when almost every single project just changed their vesting schedules of their investors. Hey, investor, I know that a year and a half ago, you gave us a bunch of money and we signed an agreement and made a promise that these were the terms, but we decided that we're going to change them on you. It wasn't even a question or a discussion. It was just, here's what we're doing. That's very illegal. But the thing is, there's just no real opportunity to litigate that. So without going into specific detail, I can say that, that this is going to be a self-regulatory mission. It will be part of the paid ecosystem. It will, we'll be using paid tokens. It'll generate revenue for paid. But most importantly, I think that, I've been able to, be doing things like Mario's Twitter Spaces and co-hosting those, and just kind of like a lot of people. I've met a lot of influential people there, but a lot of people who do care about helping to mature our industry and will really find value in the tools that we're creating. And my goal is that what this is will become a gold standard in the industry that everybody uses. And the ideal will be, if you are launching a project and you're not using, what this thing that Paid is doing, then there must be something shady that you're doing, right? And so I think that this is really exciting. It's one of, and it will be using Paid's smart agreement technology. It'll be a DAO, and that's the new product that we're doing. And then, as some of you guys know, there's infrastructure that has been built and still being built and improved upon that will make the initial Paid vision of smart agreements and agreements in general and dispute resolution and arbitration. So we've been building this infrastructure that will make everything that Paid wanted to do from the business agreements side of things much, much, much better. And the goal is to make this a tool that the end users don't even realize that they're using Web3. And that's what I think every project should do.
What do you think the market sentiment will be like at the end of the year? Do you think it'll be similar to the current sentiment?
I don't think so, because 2022 was a train wreck. It just came and there was so many issues. We had Celsius and Three Arrows and FTX, and those are all giants, and that's like, those were the brands that people trusted. And it literally, they were all representing crypto. And they were all like Alice Mashinsky from Celsius, was the most outspoken about his ethos for decentralization and, fuck the banks and blah, blah, blah. And Sam being, supposed to be the poster child for bringing in good regulation and blah, 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 blah. And, and Three Arrows, the most trusted and respected, and fund in the space. Like, I would hope that that people learn from these, but I just don't know if there's enough knowledge yet for people to understand that, like, hey, the decentralized alternatives to those things all did perfectly fine. They did what they were supposed to do. No one scammed anybody. No one lost any money. Like, they worked. Like Maker and Aave and all these things, like, they all worked. And so I don't know if it's going to take another round of lessons for people to learn. I mean, right now there's like a record low amount of, crypto on exchanges, which, that's great. Well, when all this exchange fear blows over, and, right now everyone's scared of exchanges, but like, will that go away in 4 or 5 months? Maybe, people have short-term memories. And when it comes down to the markets, there's a lot of reasons to be bullish overall. Like, fundamentally, we've never been in a better place with crypto as far as as far as the tools that are being built, the infrastructure to allow maybe an easier user experience. And, at the beginning of this year, BlackRock, announced that it was allocating, in one of its funds to Bitcoin. It's a $15 billion fund, I think. So, and BlackRock is it's the biggest asset manager in the world. And you have to think that if you are an asset manager somewhere, that would be the signal, the sign that if you were thinking about maybe getting Bitcoin before, but you were kind of on the sidelines, you needed someone to others have done it before, right? Like Fidelity, which is, owned by Tiger Global, which is huge. They've been in Bitcoin for a long time. My mom actually traded her Roth IRA retirement account for Bitcoin in 2015, but BlackRock, like that is so I think, and then guys like Michael Saylor, who are the spokesperson for kind of publicly traded companies and stuff like that, and kind of try to explain a lot of the logic behind why he thinks it's a good investment. And then BlackRock doing it. I think now if you're an institution or fund manager, and you've been on the sidelines, or maybe you weren't even considering it at all, I think maybe now those on the sidelines, that's probably their cue to that it's okay to onboard. And if you weren't considering it before at all, maybe now you are, because it's kind of hard to not take it seriously when BlackRock comes in. So that's probably one of the most bullish things in a long time. And then your question is about at the end of the year, and early. I think it's now set to be early or late Q1 next year is when we have the halving of Bitcoin. And historically we've always been full on bull run 6 months. 6 months after the halving is when things typically take off. And so I see no reason that won't be the case, which means that's still 2 years from now when we would be in maybe peak bull run season. Not peak, we'd still have a while, but like solidly in a bull run. Until then, I don't know what's gonna happen, because that euphoria and that very clear, everyone's just super excited and making money and everyone's talking about crypto, that happens 6 months after the halving. So you're talking about Q3 next year. But I do think though that we've reached a place more than likely where we're not going to go much lower. At the time of recording this, I think we have a $23,000 Bitcoin, and I don't know, I don't really trust this as far as people are now, like a lot of people think now we're back into some sort of bull run or something. I certainly don't think that we're in any type of like clear bull run, but maybe if you look at, if all you do is look at bull and bear markets and you don't look at all the in between, the times that we're often sideways and not really clearly in either market. But if you only measured both of them and you said, here's where the bull run started and here's where the bear market started, and then like this, you probably would say that this time right now is kind of when the bull run started, if you're looking at kind of the lows. So then when it kind of, but I do think that, I don't think that this year is going to be a really big year but I have, it's hard for me to know, because it's always, it's the most irrational thing to happen that typically does. Like so far in the world of crypto, nothing seems to make any sense when they actually does happen. And every time I try to make an assumption about something, I'm always wrong. So that's why I don't trade. But I think that it doesn't really matter so much anyway, because if the question is where are we going to be in 5 years from now, I know that we're going to be the market cap of the crypto industry is going to be way higher than it is today, way, way higher. And I know in 10 years, it's going to be way higher than that, So that's kind of what I set my sights on. And, for us, for me, like we're just building things that we think are going to be useful and interesting and innovative. And, when dApps and words like NFT and utility token, when that is no longer part of everyday conversation, when it comes down to people thinking about, these things that are being built, these applications built on blockchain, because that will happen, right? Like back in, in any early technology, like people are usually identifying part of that tech stack as something and identifying it by what it's called, right? But like, today we don't identify like parts of the internet, we just call it the internet, right? But we don't talk about the different layers and tech stack and involving in it. So, it really, and just like the internet times, I feel like right now we're maybe, just that last little minute before AOL came, because when AOL came, like all of a sudden everyone was online. Until then, it was like, it really wasn't very useful. The same kind of thing with AI already beat. Well, I guess AI has been around a lot longer than blockchain, but it took them like 25, 30 years to finally get it so retail, so everyday people could use it and have a proper consumer facing use case. Before, you would need teams and people who understood AI science to build that into tech somehow. But it wasn't until ChatGPT came along, and the GPT we could have used for the past year. Anyone could have used it, but it wasn't until they finally realized that, hey, maybe we need something that makes it easy for people to use. Would people enjoy this? They did, and then boom, all of a sudden 5 million downloads like that, right? So, and now it's probably our use case, 5 million users, and then now it's way more than that. So the same thing I think is going to happen with blockchain and and use cases. We're going to finally, we will have technology, and people are building it already. Like Ultra, for example, Ultra Games, they're building a gaming platform and distribution where they basically forked the EOS blockchain and modified it a bunch so that that there's going to be no gas for the end users. And that's not the best example, because it is still there's still 16 validators, and they're like companies like NVIDIA and stuff like that. And so it is somewhat distributed, but it's not like a fully like open public blockchain. But nonetheless, there's projects that people are working on that are still working to like resolve the gas issues and the friction points of Web3, and that's necessary before we start to see a lot of adoption. So, but the point is that is happening. Things like that is what we're focused on. Like when we. And I know some people are curious, about what we used to call the paid DApp, which has evolved. We'll get into that in a minute. But, it took a pause in that for a second, as far as like focusing and figuring out how is this going to be useful to people outside of crypto that don't really care about the crypto market. How are we going to make it easy enough for them to even want to try it in the first place? And if they all of a sudden they download something, and all of a sudden they have to start worrying about what is a private key, and like, and then it tells me if I lose this, I lose everything forever. And like, that will scare a lot of people. It's hard enough to get someone to use something new. So we need to remove those friction points, but that's happening as we speak. And yeah, we're going to bring that to paid, and everything that paid does. And overall, and generally, I think that 2023 will be a very uncertain year. There's a lot of uncertain macro events, war in Ukraine, inflation, all this kind of stuff, crazy job cuts, and blah 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 blah. So I'm trying to not really focus on that too much, just focus on building. But I do think that if something bad happens in 2023, like a black swan or something, by the end of the year, we will have been recovering from that anyway. I think if something does happen like that, it should be in the next 3 or 4 or 5 months. And then I kind of feel like the government has figured out too many ways to manipulate things to where I don't know if we'll ever see something like the Great Depression again. I just don't think that they would let that happen. They have too much ego more than anything. I don't know. We'll see. But I think regardless of the question that I think we will be in a positive sentiment by the end of 2023.
When it comes to projects, will there be a particular focus on a certain niche?
So we do have already some really killer projects, that are waiting to launch on Ignition, and they're just waiting for markets to get better, and which is good because none of them are exactly ready for their product launch yet. And so there's no reason for anyone to launch a token right now if they don't have a product ready to go that requires it. And so they're waiting for markets to get better. As far as niches, I don't really like to niche things so much in the space. There's so much cool innovation happening. Frankly, I think that there's going to be a lot of community decisions when it comes down to kind of what things that Ignition is going to launch and work with. I mean, and like I said before, those are two different things where, Ignition will be a permissionless platform where anyone can come, open up their pool. But there will be the kind of the sponsored ones or the tiered ones or whatever, or the ones that we do put some effort into to helping them out. I think that I don't there won't be a niche. But I know in general, I know for sure that the AI is going to be a crazy. It's going to be like we've had metaverse and GameFi and DeFi, layer 1 protocols, layer 2 protocols. These have all been market trends before, and like in the very beginning of those trends, like due diligence for most people goes out the window and everything just flies. Everything's just flying. Having been through a couple of these cycles before, I know that a lot of these are going to be complete bullshit things, right? They're going to be completely coming out of, factories in like India and stuff like that, where they're just throwing together decks, throwing together some teams, and just raising money and like just going to the next thing. And so, yeah, so I prefer not to niche because I don't. It's really not up to me or anyone. There's a team on now, which is different than last bull market for Ignition, where they're doing due diligence and also communicating more with the community about what kind of things they want to launch, things like that.
Will the vesting pools be updated once we launch IDOs again?
Everything is being redone for Ignition from the ground up. Everything. So. Everything from the smart contracts, the way that they're created, the vesting, the staking, everything's being redone. So, we've kept, like I said, we've kept a lot of this stuff kind of tight-lipped, and for good reason. People will see why when we come out with it, but we'll give people plenty of time, before we start launching things again, for them to understand how everything works, the new kind of rules and the new kind of method of way of do things. I think it's exponentially better than was done before. And I think everyone will be excited about it.
Will there be a content/narrative change for MV and paid this year?
There will definitely be a content and narrative change, 100%. I mean, that's the good thing about bear markets, is they give you time to think about everything and prepare for what you want to do when when all the craziness comes in. Because we know that in bull markets, like you don't have time to like go on the weekend, sit on a beach and reflect about what you've been doing and what kind of and this is what we've been doing this bear market, is talking amongst ourselves as a team with colleagues in the space, making sure that the mistakes that we've made, we've learned lessons from, and action plans on how to try to prevent those things in the future. Also what we did great, and see if we can expand on those, and then also improving the way that we operate by like integrating AI into our entire workflow, and into our products that we're looking at doing now. And so there's definitely a narrative change, because we're building it's Ignition. It's still a crowdfunding platform, but you'll see that it's much different than it was before, and so that involves a different narrative and education and content, and so that's from the paid perspective. I mean, and it's gonna be, and there'll be a lot, and there'll be a lot that are kind of commingled between Master Ventures and paid from the narrative perspective and education and content, because a lot of the things that I want to put an emphasis on this year in 2023 is making sure that people understand what the utility of a token is, this thing that they're buying, why are you buying it, and why should it have value? Why will it accrue in value over time if this ecosystem it belongs to becomes more adopted and more in demand?
Will there be new ways for the community to interact with paid and the team?
Yeah, so for sure there'll be more ways to interact with paid this year, for sure. Whether that, and for Ignition to launch, one, it's not finished yet with what we're building, and if we do finish that development on what the main core aspects of it, and it's tested and audited, and we're still in a really slow market, we'll probably still not open it up, because our team is busy right now building something else that that is really important. And so it depends on market timing, but Token Transparency Act, which we're working on, is something that will use the paid smart agreements functionality and will solve significant problems in the space that everybody is facing, and even if they don't know it, that they and when I explain it to people, like they will understand. And so that Token Transparency Act is what we're calling it now, by the way. That name, if anyone has any suggestions, it's basically a self-regulating kind of tool to prevent the abuse by teams owning their token contracts. And so that's the high level. Didn't take any time to think of a creative name, but anyway, that would be much more successful launched in a bear market because in a bull market, people are making too much money and things move too fast. And if someone invests into a project, probably in that month they probably invested in 20 other projects, and 4 months later you've got so many tokens. People aren't keeping track of if they're getting all their tokens from all the projects, and it just so it's the markets like now when people are making sure that they got all their tokens, and so definitely I think adoption will be easier for this, and so it will be launched. And I hope that becomes a standard. And so that means that, hopefully all the projects that we launch with, invest in, and work with are using it. It's going to be an effort as an entire crypto community together to insist that projects that are raising money use this TTA. And so that's one way that you'll be able to interact with Paid for sure this year. As far as the team, I'm not sure at this point. I do think that there's going to be, you've always been able to interact with the team on Telegram, but I do think there's going to be a lot more polls, a lot more voting on kind of like what projects are launched or how much we raise or whatever, and TTA will also have a DAO. So for the first, that will be significant to have actually a real use case, and so. So for the first time ever, you'll be able to have some governance in important decisions that are made that will, result in real things that happen in the industry.
Maybe you need to explain what TTA is. You mentioned Token Transparency Act earlier, but then you said TTA, so maybe you could clear that up for us.
Yeah, oh yeah. And so if you didn't put it together, like TTA is the abbreviation for Token Transparency Act, which is even hard to say. So again. Name is in progress.
How do you see the next 6 months going in the market in general?
Yeah, so for the paid DApp, what we called it before, and it was just because we didn't have a name for it, or it was just going to be called paid, and so we referred to it because they had ignition just as the DApp, meaning like what would be the application for the smart agreements. Is actually now we're starting to divide. Paid is kind of the network of products or the suite of products that is being built underneath the paid team and paid umbrella that will all be using paid tokens. And so what was previously called the paid DApp would be now paid markets, more than likely. And that gets really, really exciting as we talk about everything that will be done there. When we release its roadmap, we'll go into more detail. So the update is that there will be an MVP that will be significantly better. Well, it'll be significantly better user experience. I don't know if it probably won't be super beautiful yet, but I think probably for the first time, a lot of people will get to interact with an application or a DApp on blockchain that is a better user experience than before. And we're doing that by working with the team. I don't know if I've said the name of this layer one that's going on, that if you watch my AMAs before, you know what's going on, but it's because of what's going on between that team and Pay team that together we're going to demonstrate kind of the power of that layer one, working with the blockchain to make it super efficient and a really good user experience. And so while there hasn't been any significant updates to the front end paid DApp that people have tried the beta and before, we needed to reimagine the way it would work, and it's going to be much better when we do. But that means that probably by late Q1, early Q2, there will be a usable demo that people can use, and it will be implemented into the TTA. So we will have like a functioning product. I won't give a timeline. I got too much in trouble last year for promising timelines, but yeah.
What are some of the updates for Ignition that can be expected?
Other than the obvious UX UI, which we've done, which I think we're redoing anyway again. I mentioned them before, and some things I could say, like first of all, it'll be non-custodial. Also, I haven't said that yet, but paid will never ever have paid, or the paid team will never have custody of anyone's assets, not the team tokens, not the user funds, nothing. That will all happen in a permissionless way, which I think is really nice. And then I really just can't say, but all the rules will change, the way that things are done will change, the way that the paid token will be used everyone will like it way better, and at the end of the day, it'll accrue more value in the ecosystem. And so that's all I can say for now. I mean, there's a lot of innovative stuff we're doing across all of paid, and so I feel at this point a lot of it is secret sauce. And if anyone listening to this who cares about supporting paid, even though you might really want to hear what it is, trust me, it's better that we just keep it on the low until we actually are ready to showcase it, and then you guys can check it out. But we are working on some really cool things.
So when it comes to the roadmap, are there any exciting features that we can look forward to by the end of the year?
Well, the roadmap is completely outdated and irrelevant. That's publicly displayed right now. So the paid team is working on a new roadmap. I did see like a rough draft of it, I don't know, a few days ago. And so that will need to be refined. It'll need to be like double checked with devs. And then we'll release it at some points. I don't know when. But like I said, we're counting on token TTA to launch. Hopefully, sometime the first half of this year, and also the MVP for and when we're able to do the smart agreements kind of stuff for TTA. Then that could also be, there's actually like no other work than maybe a different user interface to have just the general agreements app that will be the basis of everything moving forward, which is basically what the paid DApp was, but fully functioning and working, and where people can enter into agreements with each other. They can open escrow, they can have arbitration, dispute resolution, these kind of things, all on chain. And so I definitely think that, I'm not sure what iteration we'll be on by then, but definitely, yeah, I think we're definitely gonna deliver some products that showcase a lot of interesting things this year.
Can the community pitch for IDOs?
Yeah, so I think this is something that we've talked about before. Again, with Ignition, it will be permissionless. So really, I think that a lot of people will use paid Ignition in a permissionless way, where they just come and create their own IDO, which we will have disclaimers up just saying, hey, these guys have not been vetted. We haven't done KYC or KYB on them. We know nothing about them. Like, this is at your own risk. It's permissionless. Is this project interesting to you guys or not, et cetera, et cetera. So I definitely think that community is so important. And I definitely think that, and we can, just things like some sort of incentive for someone who brings us a really great project that we end up, launching. Maybe they can be some sort of reward for them. I would love to have a lot of other people helping to make sure that we get really great projects to come on board. But yeah, I don't know. We'll bring on one of the team members on another AMA to answer that better.
All right. So now we're moving on to questions from the paid community, and our first is from Libio, and I do apologize if I messed up your name there. But the first question is, what are paid strategies to survive the bear market?
We're fine on that. Plus, Master Ventures generates revenue too, which could cover as well. So we're fine with revenue, but it was it was really good and productive to be able to take time and assess. And now it's one of the things that we're working on too in the bear market is like, policies, procedures, rules, rewards and consequences for team, things like that. So we've been able to build a more efficient system internally. And so yeah, I think it's been great. We're going to prepare for how to make sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves even in a bull market, and be prepared. And so yeah, we'll definitely make it through. Not worry about that at all. And literally can't wait until we have a bull market so we can tell you about all these things we've been doing.
All right, this next question is from Lior. We know that Paid is a VC/launchpad, but also a legal mediation blockchain solution. How do you see that progressing in relation to AI innovation? Do you think it's competition or an opportunity?
AI will certainly displace jobs. I think internally, or for now, we have to. Everyone should be looking at it and wondering, how do I implement this into my business to make us more efficient, to make my product better, etc. And so we're definitely looking at ways that we can implement it into everything that Master Ventures and Paid is doing. Paid is not Ignition is not a VC launchpad. It's a crowdfunding platform, so we can remove the VC aspect out of it. But in some degrees, it does allow some of the retail to act kind of like a VC. We at Master Ventures have been working with AI for a while in blockchain, right? We have Master Ventures has Fluid.finance, which is has an amazing AI team and really revolutionizing that. So you guys should go check it out. It's amazing. And so we're very familiar with how to implement different solutions with AI, and has been our roadmap for a while, and will be implemented into Paid, Ignition, and other things that we do. But it's really interesting because if you listen to a lot of interviews, people talk about AI displacing lawyers, and we already see things like ChatGPT passing the bar exam and doing all this stuff. There's a website called donotpay.com where if you got a parking ticket or this kind of ticket or whatever, you can go there, upload your ticket, whatever, and it'll look for loopholes, and so it knows the law. But I think that what Paid is building, just because AI knows law, doesn't mean it can build a more efficient system. A system is a place that's people use to do things, and AI can be implemented in the system to make it even better, but it's not a system in itself. And so the entire global system of agreements and dispute resolution, and that still needs to be disrupted, and we will. So so we are looking for ways to explore it. We have some really great ideas, and we got some great people behind us to help with that.
Next, we have a question from Dursudan. What do you consider as your biggest obstacle for long-term success, and how are you trying to overcome it?
So the biggest obstacle for long-term success is how do we get people that aren't interested right now in crypto, and 10 of their friends have tried to get them into it and they just don't care. How do we get them to care? And that's the biggest problem is right now, the industry is scary from an outsider looking in. I mean, if I wasn't in crypto and I looked at it right now, I would just not go near it. It has been full of dishonesty and corruption and scams and bad actors and people who are just literally making money at the expense of others. And so, but the thing that you have to realize is that this isn't happening at a crypto level. This is happening at a human level, right? So humans, cannot be trusted often just organically. Humans have single points of failure, meaning that they can all be manipulated in some degree. Even the most famous politicians who swore to fight corruption can be turned by the cartel has his wife and children with knives at their throat. that might be enough to make that guy do something corrupt. And so this is why I think it's really important that people understand just how powerful it is removing middlemen from very important points of failure. And by removing the middlemen, they're often the ones who extract value in an ecosystem as well. And so not only do decentralized systems become, way more efficient, way more censorship resistant, but provide better value for the parties involved. So if someone builds a version of like decentralized Amazon, imagine all the profit that Amazon makes, all distributed to its token holders, for example, if it had token holders. So it's really about first making the technology easy enough, and I call it grandma friendly. Grandma needs to be able to use this stuff, and right now it's just we're not there yet, but we're working on things. And so, so I've been paying attention to this, and like I said before, I knew that we had to have infrastructure that could allow it to happen before we try to take paid to a market that was outside the crypto space. And we need to get people to care about crypto for other reasons other than making money, and people need to build build use cases for it that make people's lives better in some way that doesn't have to do with making money. We still don't have that yet. We still don't have, like paid doesn't exist yet for its intended purpose for, agreements and dispute resolution. But when it does, and people learn about it and it's easy to use, and some of the really cool, clever things that we thought about, how do we make it interesting to all kinds of people? I think that, when we start to see these kind of use cases come out where, it will make someone's life significantly better in some way, and they download the app because of that reason, but it's not a DeFi thing. It's not like a yield thing. It's not a speculative NFT thing. It's like a real thing that makes people's lives way better, and it feels just like a normal app to use. And so that is the biggest challenge that we face right now. And education, educating people, again, when it becomes more easy to use, you won't have to educate people so much on it. But today, the people building the space need to be educated about, make sure they're building the right things. And the people who are, investing in these things need to make sure that they're investing in really innovative stuff, not like centralized Web2 companies posing as a Web3 company, So those are the biggest challenges, right? It's ease of use, education, and just like an actual use case that appeals to people on a massive level.
All right, next question's from Ulrike. We have, where is the best place for newbies to start at Paid?
To start what? I'm not sure, but I think that we have Paid Academy, which is a good place to go and get your basic education about all kinds of things, crypto, blockchain, and paid. And this channel is a good place to go because, because I haven't talked about it much recently, you won't find a bunch of recent information, but when we do start releasing information about the products that we have and what you can do, I will talk about it a lot, and how to use them and why it's valuable and why we did it and da-da-da-da-da. And so this will be a good place to go. Right now, there's not a whole lot you can do with Paid. I mean, the Launchpad isn't really doing any launching right now, and we're just building. So, but I do encourage you guys to all follow closely so that when we do start to talk about things, that you know what's going on. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, do it too, because I will be making videos about all this stuff.
Our next question is from Cosmin. Will Paid Network consider making its own NFT project? Something like an NFT card that will give access to certain projects or support a social cause?
We've talked about it many times before, making an NFT project for Paid. And I'm definitely interested in it, so long as it serves a real purpose, and there's real utility behind it, and that it makes sense to do it, right? I don't want to just do an NFT to do an NFT to make some money or something. And it also has to be done in a way that doesn't significantly impact the opportunity for the token holders, but it certainly is a good idea, and I can think of a few use cases for them. with the new model that we'll be rolling out. But at this point, I can't really talk about it. So we've thought about things like paid founders NFTs, where they just literally like we're not exactly sure what we're going to do with them yet, but we know that that we will continue to reward people that hold those. Maybe that's airdropping some tokens from a project we just launched, or maybe it's VIP access to the most popular raise that we're doing, or whatever it is, right? And so we thought about that, but at this point, there's nothing set in stone. It's not a high priority of ours.
Next question's from Lin Nguyen. On your website, you state that many people still do not understand the technology and innovation behind blockchain. What then will be your most important strategy to get the community to know and believe in the crypto era through your ecosystem?
Yeah, so because I already answered this before in a way, I will just say this, just reference before when I talked about my content strategy for the year, and it's a big goal. Also, paid team. It'll also be a lot of stuff about of how our economy is working, how the logic behind why we did it, and why we felt it was the best thing to do. But yeah, I did talk about that earlier.
Next question is from Baby Crypto. It says, the Solid launch was a huge success for Paid Network, all pools filling up very quickly. This was, of course, great, but many missed it. So my question is, do you intend to add additional pool groups? And if so, when exactly?
So I'm not sure. I don't think we launched anything called Solid, but the question's the same no matter what. Your question, essentially what you're asking, I believe, is will there be new ways that make it easier or more available for people to get into high demand projects that Ignition has limited allocation to? And I can say, without giving away too much, definitely say that 100%, any significant barrier to entry will be lowered or reduced altogether. But I don't. It really depends on. It depends on the project. How much allocation, how much that we're raising for them. We've thought about. I thought the most important thing to do was to remove any high barrier entry of your chance of getting an allocation to even exist. That when paid was expensive, or any of that, like you would have to invest like, I don't know, purchase like $50,000 in pay tokens just to even step in the ring to maybe get an allocation. So that will be changed. Beyond that, I can't really say at this point, but I think you'll be happy with it.
Our next question is from Gianfranco. Being one of the paid dApp beta testers, I'd like to know what progress has been made and when will the final dApp be launched? Paid is not only a launch pad, but this image is sticking as there's no other product at the moment.
Hey, Gian, thanks for the question. Good question. I did mention before, that there will be use case for the paid smart agreements aspect more than likely at some point in the first half of this year. So, but like all development, it's never done. And, the grand vision of where I see paid smart agreements going, there's a lot more work to do before including just general education for people to understand, because, essentially if you're going to use paid, you're kind of saying, well, I'm going to choose to use this solution versus what everyone's been used to, which is these legal agreements drafted by lawyers that are expensive and slow. That's a paradigm shift that people will need to be able to digest anyway. But yeah, but like I said, yeah. So those are the updates. The roadmap should be out pretty soon about kind of the plan for this year. But yeah, paid dApp, it'll be different than you saw before, and that should be working by sometime in the next 4 months, something like that. And then if the market comes back around, well, actually, no, we talk about the paid dApp, yeah. And like I said before, also the paid dApp is now probably paid markets, and the scope in which it will become is also more expanded now to add some really cool things. I think I might have talked about those things in a previous AMA at one point, but it hasn't been updated in white paper or public-facing documentation yet. So yeah. Anyway, that is also in the works too. That'll all come out when kind of we come out of like stealth mode again.
And the last question we have is from Anonymous. It says, "Are there any AI projects launching on Ignition?"
As far as I know, right now there's just the one that will more than likely for sure have some sort of allocation is, as long as their legal team says it's going to be okay, is Fluid, which is Master Ventures project. That is really cool, legit team, real AI. And then of course we are going to have to be skeptical of every project that comes along, while the AI topic is so hot. That we just can't have to be diligent to make sure that these guys are actually AI scientists and they actually have a product. And again, if you're buying the token, we want to make sure that has real token utility too. So that's all I can say for now. There's nothing else that we have that's in the pipeline waiting for better markets in AI, but yeah, Fluid for sure. All right, guys. So that wraps up the AMA. Like I said, if there's anything else that you thought I should have talked about or have questions, let us know in the comments below. I'll make sure to get around to them either on the next AMA or if I think it's a really interesting question, maybe I'll make a tweet about it or something, or like a quick video and post it on my Twitter. So make sure you're following me over there and Paid's Twitter as well. And yeah, you guys stay strong. Stay confident, keep your chin up. If you made it this far through the bear market, then you are a warrior, and pat yourself on the back. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.